Um, there you go. We have a few people who are still coming in, so we'll give them a minute or two before we jump in. But this is a short session, a 15-minute session for you to guys to ask questions and for us to give you some answers. So, hello, you guys know who Beau is. Beau was in the panel previously. They are the program assistants at our Urban Resource Institute's PALS program, People and Animals Living Safely. My name is Lina Cohen. I'm actually the manager of Pals for All, which is the initiative of uh, our program that focuses on training and technical assistance. I'm going to moderate this panel, and Beau and I are going to talk, but we encourage everyone to use the Hoover app. There's a Q&A tab if you're using the web version, which is the only one I'm using, so the only one I can really explain. There's a tab on the right side that has Q&A, polls, chat, and community. You can type your questions into Q&A. And we will try and get as many as possible. There were a few from the previous session. We'll try to get to those too if we can. Vanessa is our My Dog is My Home liaison. She is not on video right now, but she is going to be our superstar doing any kind of troubleshooting. So you can hit up the chat for Vanessa. Um, Lina, I see there is another Lina who loves my name. Thank you. I love yours. So let's get to it. Hi, Beau. How are you feeling after your presentation?
Uh, a little nervous and like there's so much more that we can get into.
There's
So,
so much that we can discuss. So, what I'm going to do is start asking questions so we can start discussing some of these things. So, here's the first one. How do you handle pets coming into shelter who are not vaccinated? Michigan requires a rabies vaccination, but we aren't allowed to ask that question.
oh, interesting. Yeah, so we don't require animals to be vaccinated before coming into shelter. Just kind of come as they are. When they're in shelter, we are like working with them and like doing the work usually with like an animal welfare partner to get them vaccinated as soon as possible. Rabies is legal. It is like legally mandated. So we're doing that, and of course we're encouraging to get, all the other vaccines and spay neuter. But of course legally mandated one is rabies. So that's how we handle that.
I also want to just quickly give credit to Anne English, who's our Hoova support through this. Thank you, Anne. And yes, thank you. Good question, Beau. If anybody else has questions, again, it's the Q&A tab on Hoova. Okay, I'm gonna mark that one as answered, and I'm gonna move forward with the next one. What can animal service partners do to make the process of human shelters allowing pets easier? What does optimal partnering looks like?
Yeah. There's so many things that we can do together. There's so many things that we we can get from working with animal welfare partners. Sometimes there's like clinics, right? And we can send like owners with their animals to get like spayed and neutered, and some like basic vet care, exams. Sometimes we've had like grooming clinics, and they can get like some grooming done and get taught how to like, clip animals' nails and stuff. In another organization that we work with, Paws, sometimes has agreed to work with someone who's trying to get through the reasonable accommodation process in New York City to have, emotional support animals with them. And they'll do, temporary foster, temporary boarding. So that kind of stuff, very helpful. That's stuff that we can use.
The other thing, if you don't mind me just chiming in, is an
Please.
even simpler step is just being the animal welfare expert in the room. People who get into human services do not do that expecting to know animal stuff or that they'll even have to interact with animals. So having talks about behavior, having talks about regular medical care, because like you have to assume that the person that's working in the human shelter or in the human spaces don't know what those basics are, don't know that rabies is legally required, don't know that tail wagging could mean this or that, depending on other symptoms and other shows that the animal's putting on. So all of that stuff is really, really helpful. And then coming from a positive space of just like, we want to make this work. How can we work together? Somebody asked what database and computer programs we use to keep track of our information. Um, Beau, if you want to give a very quick.
Wow, what a great question for me specifically. I love data. Yeah, we have our own internal system. Well, I guess the other people use Apricot. We use Apricot, I guess is the short, very, very short answer. Apricot is the main thing, I think.
But we started on Excel, because we
We
were a really small program and
yeah,
we
sure did.
weren't great with our data. Somebody else in the previous panel mentioned that they weren't great at data collection in the beginning, and spoilers, neither were we necessarily. So yeah, Apricot is how we're moving forward, keeping track of everybody that's in our system. Whew. Um, we're keeping it flying. I do have a few more questions, but again, folks, if for folks who've been just joining, I've been hearing the ding dongs of people joining constantly. So, if you have questions for us about how our program is run or stuff that you'd like to know, please do ask them in the Q&A on Whova. Next question, and this is kind of a big picture one, so if you need me, let me know, Bo. But how do you address liability concerns with having pets and people in the same house?
I mean, this is an interesting question because I'm like liability concerns. What does that entail exactly? We haven't really had, and and at the same time, I understand what the person is asking, right? Like, but we really haven't had a whole lot of liability issues come up. Like things happen, but like nothing crazy has happened. People with allergies doesn't really come up as often as you think. Not a lot of people with severe allergies that it's causing an issue. If dogs or cats are having behavioral concerns, it's usually pretty easily addressable. And also, you know, we're doing so much to make sure that the animals and strangers are not interacting, that animals are not really interacting with each other, that don't know each other, that strangers aren't, interacting, that strangers meaning like, just shelter staff. No one, including us, we don't really even want to have that much interaction. It's really just like the owner and the dog. So I hope that answers the question. I don't know, Lina, if you have anything
Yeah.
to add.
I mean, the only other thing I would add is that shelter spaces generally are places of high liability, right? You put a bunch of humans who have just experienced a lot of trauma into a space, you're going to expect stuff happens. Kids jump down the stairs and break their legs. That's a thing that happened while I was working in shelter. We manage, but like Bo said, we haven't had any major incidences. A person's never been bitten before. Animals have gotten into like very, very minor kind of like walking down the hallway, bumping into each other, snapping at, but nothing really intense. Um, that prevention is an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Keeping people separate from the animals as much as possible and keeping everybody in their own spaces works best. What advice can you give to nonprofits starting up with a similar mission to yours? General advice or growth specific?
Um, you can start small. You don't have to
Yes.
do it all.
Hmm.
Like, it can be as simple as like if you're on the human side of things, it can be as simple as like reaching out to like animal shelters in your area and seeing like would they be willing to partner with you in helping with fostering? Rescue organizations, they do a lot of fostering sometimes. Just reaching out and just seeing like, okay, just starting that like conversation of like what would it look like to help with boarding or fostering, and you can go from there. Or if you're comfortable with it, maybe you accept cats. That's how we started, is just cats. Um, just like starting small doesn't have to
Hmm.
be huge. Yeah,
Yeah.
Lena.
Yeah, I mean, echoing that. I mean, right now we're doing a pilot in homeless shelter, because we want that to expand and want that to be a thing that happens. And we only accepted 5 families because we have to prove the concept works to the people who make the regulations and work at the state level. And so start as low as you can, but like also be very flexible, and try and consider everybody as much as possible. Um, okay, let me see some more questions. How do you handle transporting owners of pets to veterinary appointments?
Oh, yeah. Well, For a while, we did have, well, for a while we had ASPCA help, and then not so much anymore. And then we provided the cars for people, but that's sort of been on pause too. For the most part, it's kind of like up to like, does the person, it's like up to need, right? Does the person have disability? Do they have multiple small children? But otherwise, just like, they are independent outside of shelter, they're kind of expected to be independent inside of shelter. So mostly they're kind of getting there on their own.
Have most staff, and we have about 5 minutes left, so get your questions in. We'll try and do like a lightning round. Have most staff who are people-oriented in care come around to seeing the value in the PEP programs? Anything in particular that gets them on board?
Um, yes, people have absolutely come around. What has gotten people on board? Just seeing the animals, I think. Sometimes we'll have people who are not the pet people and they'll be like, that dog, it can't be in that crate all day. That dog can't be in that crate. Doesn't, and we're like, the dog's fine to be in the crate. Like they're starting to advocate to us about the animal. So people turn around. I think they just, they see the animals around and they get used to it.
Mhm.
Also like other people, of course, not everyone coming into shelter, working in shelter rather, it has an animal background, but some do. Some people have their own pets and they totally get it. So
Yeah.
I think that,
I would say for the reluctant staff, the thing that works the best is that our program, when it is working smoothly, you don't even notice that animals are in the space because they're hanging out with their owner and having their normal days go about. And so having those people be like, "Oh yeah, we have pets. Wait, we have that many pets in the building? I don't even know," has been a very successful way to get people on board. If we're not looking from the touchy-feely side of like, I really like that dog. It's really cool. Or every time I go into that unit, the cat's very friendly, type of stuff. Here's a very easy one. Do you limit how many pets people can bring in, Beau?
yep. It's up to three with exceptions. So, the spaces are not huge, not all of them. So, if someone's trying to come in with like three Great Danes, that unfortunately we are gonna have to say no to all three. But if someone's coming in with like four guinea pigs, that we might let that slide.
Cool. Oh, we're so close to time. We're gonna
Okay.
try our fastest. I'm a vet social worker in a hospital in Chicago, and we often see people who can't afford the crazy thousands of dollars for something like a surgery. Do you guys provide medical help for any medical needs a pet might need, especially if it's really sick or in need of life-saving surgery procedure? Beau, do you mind me taking that? Because I'll take it really, really fast.
Yes.
And so, yes, we do to an extent, basically, with an asterisk. So all of our general care, the non-emergency stuff, always goes to our pet partners, and having strong pet partners is very helpful. We're close to the ASPCA, and they are, trying to help with like prevention services and keep people from having to give their pets up by giving them routine care. They will also help with emergencies. We actually do have some funding for emergencies, which we have been lucky enough to apply for and get. But it's case by case. Also, animal hospitals do have their own sometimes kind of funding services. So we also are in communication with vet offices when our clients are going. We'll be on the phone and trying to advocate for them the entire time. Boom. Do all pets stay in the same room slash housing as their owner, or some kept in other spaces?
They're always with the owner. Always, always, always with the owner. Yeah, point blank.
One more minute for two questions. Do you
All
have a
right.
process for pets during fire drills and emergencies, specifically if there's potentially a fire when the owner may not be on property?
Um, yes. Is it that they stay in the crate? Sorry, I'm
Yeah,
asking.
it's okay.
They stay in the crate.
Yes, so
Yeah.
we ask people to crate their animals when they're not in the unit for many reasons. It's like if there's an emergency in the unit and staff needs to go in, it is safer for the staff, it's safer for the pet, they don't escape. But also in case of a fire and emergency, good records. So if somebody knows apartment 5E has a dog in it and the dog is in the crate, the fire department can go in and grab that animal. And that is what we would kind of say is our procedure. And yeah, go ahead.
And we
And
have
then for
magnets.
we have what? Oh, we have
Magnets on the
magnets on
doors.
the doors that say that they're part of our pet program. And then additionally, pets are supposed to be brought down during fire drill times. Okay, last one, and we are at 3:15. Vanessa, are we okay to keep going? Yes, okay. We're a small rural DV shelter. We only have 3 bedrooms. We currently do not allow pets, but would love to start. Advice on getting started in such a small agency.
Um, Well, I have questions. I'm sorry. I have questions about your layout, but yeah, like the same to the that earlier question, which is like reach out to local like pet rescue. See what they do in terms of animals. Would they be willing to help you foster? Would they be willing to help you board? And you can start there. You can start with like small animals, cats, like smaller animals can be, where you start. And also something else to remember with pets, it's like you're not inviting in like, you know, dog fighting dogs or something. You're inviting in like people's family pets. They're not necessarily wild, they're their family pet. So, whatever you're expecting, it's usually a bit more chill than that.
Yeah. And I would also say that like partnerships are super essential to these things. But starting small, I mean, you guys are small. You're always going to have like a small number of folks until you continue to expand. But working out in partnership, saying something to the effect of like, we know that there's probably an animal welfare crisis going on because it's going on all around the country where animals are being returned to shelter. We want to stop that. We want to slow that down. We want to help keep people and animals together so that you guys have an easier time and so that our clients have an easier time. So how can we do that together and kind of see where the conversation goes from there? It is 3:16, so I do think that we have to wrap up. You guys brought some killer questions. Thank you so much. Um, Thank you to Vanessa. Thank you to Anne for helping us monitor and make sure everything's running smoothly. Thank you so much for Beau for sharing with us your expertise. And we'll see you in the next session, which is Vanessa. When's the next session? Next
In
session's at
fif-
3:30, y'all.
yep, just in a
Yep.
15 minutes. So we will see you then. Bye.
Thanks everyone so much. Have a great one.